welcome. I don't know how we're going to be able to follow that the kickoff panel, but we're going to do our very best, and we're going to succeed at it. So this is the panel. It is titled "Video Didn't Kill the Radio Star," and this is tips for doing an audio podcast on video. The reason that I proposed this panel is because this used to be the podcasting track. I've been actually coming here to the track since its inception when it was called the podcasting track, and because I was a podcaster. And since then, I and several other people up here have made the transition from that old podcasting to also including a live video audience, but we're still an audio podcast. And there's some things you need to think about and some tips that we have learned over the years on how to keep both audiences engaged, both in the ones that can't see your visual medium and the ones who can see you in visual medium. So my name is Bobby Blackwolf. I've been a longtime video game podcaster. I started in 2005. So I've been doing my show for a little over 16 years. It was patterned after an AM radio talk show where I give my commentary on things on the industry. We take live calls. It was always live on Shoutcast Internet Radio. But I made the move to Twitch with doing video in December of 2018 with the network that I co-founded called the Voice of Geeks Network, which was a podcast network as well as a Twitch channel featuring all things geek culture. So I'm going to go down and introduce yourselves here.
Sure. Hi, I am Rob Roberts. I have a very similar kind of path to Bobby. I have been doing podcasting about video games for a very long time. In fact, we believe we are the longest running show on the internet about video games. It's called Orange Launch Radio, and it's been running since 2002. So we just celebrated 19 years in June. Thank you. So when we started, we were on Live 365, if you remember them. Actually, I think they came back. It's like all the stuff from the 90s came back again. So Live 365 was where we started. We were there for several years and then kind of moved into our another network, our own Shoutcast feed, et cetera, et cetera. I won't bore you with all those details, but we were audio only for a very long time. And as of December 2018, I think it was, the network that I'm on with Bobby Blackwolf, VOG Network, we made a shift to doing our live content on Twitch TV. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart because it was a big change for us, having done an audio-only format for, I guess it would have been about 16 years at the time, give or take, then shifting that conversation to what does that look like on Twitch TV while not alienating our podcast listeners that we've built up that have made it a habit. So I guess I have some thoughts on this topic, but I'll turn it over.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Todd Cochran. I've been a podcaster since October 2004, so just across those 17 years. I did audio podcasts exclusively probably the first 5 years, and then about the time Ustream came online, I don't know if they're still in business or not, started doing live at the same time as us doing the regular audio recording of the show, and it was kind of a unique situation for me. I was living in Hawaii at the time, and what it really was about is I was doing a solo show, and I got bored being by myself. So I started live streaming just to have a little bit of interactivity with some audience members, and the people that tuned in were from Australia and New Zealand because the rest of the United States was asleep when I recorded my show at 8 o'clock Hawaiian. But I do 3 shows now, and they all have a video component to them. But it'll be exciting to talk about what I have learned over these past 10 years or so that I've been doing live streaming as well as an audio podcast.
Yeah, so, and we are streaming as well, this panel right here on twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. I am actually using my skills as well because I'm so used to reading chat. I've got chat open, and apparently they can hear me twice, which means I'm twice as important as everybody else here. That's not true. I'm just saying it that way. So I don't know if that's been fixed or not, but anyway. So one of the things that I'd like to know is, when you jumped from audio to video, what did you add to the video to give people a reason to watch live? And I'll start down at the end of the table over there with Todd.
Well, I went large, and I was lucky I had a sponsor to be able to support it. So I started right off with a TriCaster. Of course, today, no one needs a TriCaster with all the cool stuff that's out there now. But what it really was is being able to bring in graphics, bring in screen captures, bring in, it's kind of funny. I always said, why do people want to see some dude sitting on a desk talking tech and giving news? Well, I kind of turned it into a news program. And so I modified the content a little bit. But I also, as you kind of alluded to in your introduction, was I had to be careful about the audio audience because actually I have a note even on my monitor today that says, remember they're listening, because 70% of my audience still listens and 30% watches. So whenever I'm describing something or I put a screenshot up, something that the audience is watching can see, I have to describe it verbally so that the people that are listening do not get annoyed. So it's one of those things that I learned I got hate mail, from audience members. So we have no idea what you're talking about, because we can't see it. And I'd say, see this? And they'd be like, see what? I'm looking out the cars. I'm driving down the street listening to you. So I just had to be more careful in the production of the content so that both audiences got the full value of the program.
I'll let you talk about the ticker bars because that was probably the biggest change doing at VOG Network. But I'm going to be honest and candid a little bit. I was a little bit resistant to the idea of doing video because we had actually done, I don't talk about this much, but we had actually done Justin TV streaming of our show, and I don't even remember the year. What year was Final Fantasy 13 now? That was 2008
or 9.
Yeah, so
we
did like a little bit of a simulcast, but that's really what it was. It's like we didn't treat it like a lot of video at all. It was very much you can peer in the studio while we're doing our show, but we didn't treat it like video at all. And that kind of came and went as a personal situation meant we didn't have quite as big of a space that was suited for video. But when we made more of the permanent transition where, Twitch TV was going to be our primary source as opposed to Shoutcast or what have you, I was very much in the beginning, this is still Orange Lounge Radio, not Orange Lounge Video. So this is going to be just, the camera pointed at us while we're doing our radio show. But I learned pretty quickly, even in feedback from the first couple episodes, that wasn't really going to work, and that I was going to have a mindset of there are some things that you're going to have to play to the camera, some things you're going to have to do for the video, and again, a lot of what you're describing with the you have to be more descriptive. You can't just how many fingers am I holding up and expect people are going to know that or whatever it is. You have to still be very descriptive and describe and talk, give a lot of more background than you might be used to doing with just the video only. So yeah, I think in the beginning, outside of what you're going to talk about, there wasn't a lot that I wanted to do different. I think it was kind of growing pain from here to there. I will say one tiny little thing we did. I don't know. I just had like this random thing. I was like, well, I don't want to just like press the button to go live and it's ta-da, we're live. Like that's really awkward. Mm-hmm. I want to have something that, kind of builds up to that. So we had like a little promo that shows the cats and, that cycles through some different pictures. And then I was like, well, we need like a little bumper or something. So we actually took the idea, I guess you could say from Dragon Con TV, but actually it comes from You Can't Do That on Television way back in the day, where they go, so-and-so will not be seen tonight, so we can bring you our special presentation. We actually do that, but we do it with like video games and really bad Photoshop because it's all me and I don't Photoshop.
Now, also, what's interesting with you is that since you were, especially when you started back in 2018 on Twitch, you were in the same room with your co-hosts. But many times, normally when you're doing the radio show, and even in radio stations, they're not really looking at each other. And you were doing that as well. And people were like, why do you hate your co-host? Because you're reading a story and your back is to your co-host while you're talking to him. Mm-hmm. And you're right, and I forget that sometimes. I'm like, that was a big niche of our show, is that we were all in the same space until the pandemic. We all know about that, but we were all in the same space. And you're right; those first couple episodes, one of my friends texted me after the show and was like, "You were barely looking at Loki the whole show." Like one of my co-hosts, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's how it usually is." Like I'm like multitasking on my computer over here. I'm checking my phone. I'm doing all that stuff because I don't. When he's talking, I'm listening, but I'm the type that, so I had to snap out of that real fast. And like by the next episode, really be like, okay, no phone. And then like occasionally I got to turn and check chat. But otherwise I need to be making eye contact with Loki or a camera or Dark Soccer across the way or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And then also kind of having to train your co-host. Don't just say I'm holding this up to the camera and not explain what it is.
That's a big one.
So that's something that when you're working with multiple people, it's not just you that has to adapt to the video, it's also the co-host. But your co-hosts have done some interesting things, like Loki, one of his, which is not a variant. He's actually from the Mask.
His name comes from the Mask, actually. Yeah.
But he actually uses a green screen and puts a different video game behind him.
Well, it's interesting. We've done this panel for a few years now, right? Ever since we made that change. This is an interesting year because I feel like a lot of people now had to make the shift to video in all facets of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a different approach this time. And there was that interesting change where we weren't all in the same room anymore. And now it's, everybody's kind of in their box doing their thing. Like we're used to on Zoom calls. It's interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that I did from the very beginning was I set my studio up in a spare bedroom, such that I had 2 monitors behind me that were off the side just a little bit, that were essentially 2 Mac Minis that were running Skype. And then I would bring someone via video. So obviously I can't turn and look at the monitor to see them. So what I did is I duplicated the video and I put a monitor in front of me where I could see them. So there was that, we were able to play off each other, but yet the audience really didn't know that. They could tell that I was interacting with them, but it wasn't such a point where I could turn and see. So for me, because I'd already never had guests in studio, the bringing them in via video was always a thing. And then I could switch them in on the main screen if they needed to be front and center and run lower thirds and all that stuff. So I think the interactivity is good. And, if for those of you that are just doing audio podcast, if you do Zoom or Skype or something like that, you're going to find, if you're doing a show with a partner, that it's going to get better when you can actually see each other and you're recording that audio only, because you kind of cue better. And when you're just doing it remotely where both of you are on audio, it's not as clean. So, if you're only doing audio, make sure you add that video component just so you can see each other when you're recording.
Can I piggyback off the Skype thing real quick? Because I had a very similar experience. And I think this kind of goes to really thinking about, even in the virtual environment, thinking about your shot composition and who is being put where, just based on maybe where things are physically for people. Because for me, we used to be all in the same room. Then we made the shift to Zoom Skype. And the way I had things laid out originally, I can see my co-host on a TV that's over here, even though my camera for the show is over here. So I found that I was kind of always looking off this way because I was trying to see them in the TV. But at the time, in the beginning, my shot was on the right. So it looked like I was staring off into space. So I learned pretty quickly, if I just flipped it around, what it was actually doing is that even when I was looking at the TV to see my co-host, it looked like I was looking at their boxes. And I think that made it visually so much better, just that one flip-flop change, just being aware of that.
And it's one of the things, like if he hadn't pointed that out, you might not have really noticed it, but it looks better. And you probably I couldn't put my finger on it. But now that when you hear that, you'd be like, oh yeah. So there's a lot of that goes into the thinking that you just don't even see or think about. One of the things that he was alluding to that we added was, because we use OBS, Open Broadcaster, OBS Studio, used to be Open Broadcaster software. But you can add kind of an overlay type of thing, and it's all just web pages. You can just bring in web pages. And so I created some tickers that we could use for our show. So if you remember, and I know this might be a dirty word at DragonCon, Sports Center, sorry. But Sports Center about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't know how long ago it was, what they used to have on the left side of the screen, they would have the list of stories that they're going to be talking about. And at the top is highlighted the one they're talking about now. But that way you could kind of see, okay, in 2 stories, they're going to talk about my team that I care about. So, and then you could keep watching that. I built that for us. And so we actually have a little panel on the side that says, here's what we're talking about. And then, we have a button on our little stream decks that'll, move it up and it animates and everything. And that was just like one of the little things that we had done just to kind of give the video audience a little more. But the audio audience, it doesn't change anything about the audio. And so that's why it was one of the nice things that we did. And then we also have a bottom ticker that acts like a news ticker. But each show can have different RSS feeds, which are getting harder to find now because there aren't that many RSS feeds for news websites anymore, apparently. But it will bring in like news headlines from other like gaming sites or whatever we put in there. Anime Show uses it, and they put in anime websites, anime news down there. And that's also where we hide all like because we're on Twitch and we are a Twitch affiliate, so we get bits and subscriptions. That's where we hide the new follows and the bits. They scroll in at the bottom. They don't make a sound. We don't reference them during the podcast because our audio podcast doesn't care about.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting kind of culture shift because when you're used to watching people stream on Twitch and they get follows, they get bits, they like to kind of interrupt and say, "Hey, thank you so much for the follow," and thank you, and people like to be acknowledged like that. That is, and like you say, it's a very tricky thing because I think if you're taping an audio podcast and you're kind of listening to that after the fact and you can't see chat and it's in the audio format, that kind of talk is really derailing. And annoying, and it's really weird because it's a completely different mindset from the rest of Twitch, where that's part of it. That's the engagement and everything, right? So I'm glad we have something to kind of tie it together and give that. I know you say it's kind of hiding it, but I think it's more like it's acknowledging it without having to verbalize it, sort of thing. And so and unfortunately, and I have to bring this up with Twitch in this day and age. Unfortunately, on Twitch, it's also very easy to hide if necessary. With everything that's going on Twitch, that's
one thing,
unfortunate but good.
One thing that I found was I had audience everywhere, and I had co-hosts that had social media accounts too. So what we went to was a multi-streaming scenario, one to many. So we go live on YouTube Live, we go live on Facebook in 3 different locations, personal page and two other actual pages. We go live on 2 Twitter accounts. We go live on Twitch. Where else? So I guess 7 or 8 different locations. People say, why would you do that? Well, depending on the person that's on the show, depending on where their audience is where they're going to tune in. Now, I do a tech show and we do stuff about podcasting. So there's really not a Twitch crowd. I think we have 1 or 2 followers over there. So there's nobody on Twitch. But our Facebook following and our YouTube following is pretty big. And what we have found is because we do YouTube Live, YouTube is now the number 2 search engine. So you have Google is a search engine for discovery, and you have YouTube as discovery for search engine. So we have found that the multi-streaming piece has actually helped us for a discovery, and we're growing our audiences because people go on YouTube and they're looking for a certain amount of content, and they'll find that live episode, which then leads them back to the main website to be able to subscribe or follow. And it just makes it easy for people to find us. So it's just a little bit of a different strategy. The Twitter Live, we'll get 600 or 700 views on a stream for that. That's decent, but it really doesn't drive a lot of engagement. We do find that for us at least, the Facebook and YouTube Live is where most of the engagement comes in.
One thing I do want to caution people with that, though, on the Twitch front. I know you said for you guys, Twitch isn't really what you're engaging with, but just something I want to caution people with. If you are a Twitch affiliate and you have money making enabled on Twitch, then you've signed an agreement, whether you realize it or not, that you're keeping your content exclusive to Twitch to 24 hours. So you're not supposed to multi-stream. I understand people do it anyway, but it's one of those you're doing it at your own peril type of things, and it's just something you have to consider. Certainly, I don't want to derail the concept of the multi-stream because I get it.
That's a good,
but
good note,
you have to. I mean, and I don't know what YouTube's agreements look like or any of those other sites. If you are monetizing with any of these platforms, be aware if what Todd's talking about is even an option to you.
But if you monetize elsewhere off those platforms through sponsorships or whatever, go nuts. And even if you are a Twitch affiliate now and maybe you're not making that much money on Twitch, you can turn it off. You can say, I don't want to be a Twitch affiliate anymore. I'm going to do, I don't make any money from Twitch. And then you're free to restream without any repercussions or anything and get sponsorships or do other money-making things the way that podcasts have been doing it for a long time.
And it may give you pause to even ask, like, do I want to make money off this? Because the answer might honestly be no, and that's fine. Honestly, for me, for OLR, for a long time, I'm not really interested in making money. I mean, it's nice to not have a net negative anymore, but so before you sign those agreements, if that's something, maybe ask yourself, like, would I rather make a little bit of change to pay some of the bills, or would I rather have the multi-stream ability to, go to all these other places and try to grow the audience that way? You have to ask yourself these questions, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's what's best for you and your show.
I think it's important for creators to get paid, though. We're giving them, let's be frank, when we're on Spotify and all these other platforms, we're giving them our content, and they're basically making money off us. So any opportunity you get to earn some dollars on any of your content, you need to do that, because those companies are definitely not going to pay us. Now, Twitch, you have the opportunity to make money. YouTube, you do as well. Facebook, at this point, no. So, you may want to go to the platforms that will take care of you as a creator as well. But, YouTube has its own challenges, and you have to have so many view hours before you're monetized anyway. And many people never hit that mark.
So, Rob, let's talk really quick about some of the perks that we give to people, since we got on the monetization topic. And one of the what we do on Twitch to encourage people to throw their Amazon Prime subscription. So if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Prime Gaming sub a month, and it costs nothing to you, but the creators get the exact same amount of money they would have gotten. What type of things do we do to incentivize people to maybe throw their $5 a month?
Sure. So one thing that we did with VOG Network and the archive of the Orange Lounge radio shows is that Twitch actually enables you to have your archive hidden to non-subscribers, and that you can only access the video content with a subscription. And for me, that was really attractive, because that was a way for us to say, we're adding something because we didn't monetize for a long time. I had sort of my own reservations about that I had to work through. Once we finally got to that point where Twitch kind of made that an option that was attractive to me, I like the idea of you only access the video archive through the subscription, because it's something extra. And then that way we haven't taken anything away from what we've used to do. We have done this show online, audio only, for free for, at the time, 16 years or what have you. And we didn't have to change any of that. It was, you can either watch the video live or, pay the small fee to watch the archives on demand and see all the screw ups in real time and all that stuff. The other thing that I think is kind of fun is that, Twitch has like the channel points. So we would do like channel point fundraisers, although they're not actual like charity fundraisers, but it's like, we'll do a special stream if so many live listeners donate so many points, as like a fun extra thing that would be just for the like live and subs. Again, we're not taking anything away from the podcast, but something extra. So like, for example, during our anniversary month in June, we raised channel points. And on our 19th anniversary, on the actual day, we went back and listened to episode 1 of our show from 2002, which we knew was going to be very painful. Actually, it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad.
I was very surprised. What was funny about that, we had more people watching the episode 1 with commentary bonus stream than we had that were actually there for episode 1 way back in 2002. So that always cracked me up. That was awesome.
But 1 or 2 of the people that were there for episode 1 were in chat.
1 or 2, yes. But that's always a nice little family reunion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, we have on our Discord server, we have a subscriber text chat channel. Where sometimes we post things, and you can link your Twitch and your Discord, and you can do some type of that type of stuff as well. But once again, we don't try to take anything away from anybody else. One of the services, and I want to see if y'all have had experiences with this, and we're actually using this right now on twitch.tv/DC Digital Media. By the way, Sia DeBerry, thank you for the tier 1 sub. But a company that has kind of come up and made it a lot easier to do stuff on all these platforms. They restream to all of them, but StreamYard, because we use OBS because I built some custom things, but if we weren't doing that, we'd probably be using StreamYard, which does a lot of this heavy lifting for you. Have y'all had experiences with StreamYard, and how does it compare?
I use StreamYard when I'm on travel and not in the studio. And again, though, because I'm multicasting, I send that stream from StreamYard over to Wowza, and then they do the redistribution of that through Cloud Wowza. There's several restreaming services out there.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't have experience with it through the show, but I've used it in personal life for other hobbies, funny enough. So, or guesting on other people's shows, of course. It's a nice platform. It's very, it's pretty simple. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've only been on it when doing stuff with like Dragon Con, and I think one of the Almost Daily Discourse podcast used it, and it's neat because it'll also like combine all the chat for you. So if you want to go down the restreaming route, it's one of the ways to do it. I know there are other services; it's just the one that I've known. But that you can even like highlight chat comments, and it does all the spiffy animations and stuff. And I'm like, I wish I could do that in OBS.
I will say one thing about live though.
Yeah.
You know, I've been doing live for a while, and I've seen companies come and go. I don't trust any of them from a standpoint of protecting my brand. So I've always built my brand around my.com. It's just something I've lived by. You know, I'll fall on the sword before I'll give up my .com. And where my content lies on these other platforms are just that. They lie on the other platforms. And my audience always know really where Moonbase Alpha is, and that's at my.com. And so I caution you. We've seen some of these platforms at times be real good to creators, and then all of a sudden they just pull the rug out from underneath us. So, I think a lot of them are doing great things, but in the back of my mind, I always say, when are the rules going to change? When's the monetization going to change? I just, from doing this so long, I don't trust them. So I'm glad they're here and they're providing the services they are, and people are getting, creating and making money. But at the same point, I know if they go away, I won't.
Yeah, because when we started, it was Podcast Alley was where you got all your podcasts.
That's right. They're gone.
And the Podcast Pickle was the next big one. But yeah. I'm gonna roll that. So if y'all have any questions, there is a mic up in the center. You can even ask us about, if any stories of what we've, either doing the podcast for so long or doing it on video. Also, I am monitoring chat over at the Twitch channel, so we can also get some virtual questions in here as well. But we have a person at the mic right now, so say your name and say where you're from and your question.
Hey man, I'm Adrian from Miami, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, since I'm kind of doing an audio podcast, but I don't seem to get any leeway into getting bigger numbers. How do you best market your platform, even video or audio? And do you find it easier to market it video?
So it's a marketing question. Go down.
I guess I can. I talk to podcasters 10 times a week, and this is the number one question I always ask: how do I grow my show? And I'll go back to what I kind of referenced a few minutes ago. I always start with their website. I go to the website and I say, when I land on your website, if I can't subscribe or follow to your show in 3 seconds, you have failed as a content creator to make it easy for someone to follow or subscribe to you. If you're on a platform where you're building their platform and you're not building your brand, that might be another issue as well. So I always tell content creators, you need to have your own .com. And what that really does ultimately is you have to create great content. That's given. You have to be consistent in creating content. You have to write good titles for each of your episodes, and you have to write good show notes for each of your episodes, because you record for your audience, but your website and how your blog post is, it goes along that is for Google. That is how you're going to grow over time. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And being able to put out fresh content on a regular basis and having that good metadata available for Google to eat, or YouTube to eat, or wherever it may be, will ultimately drive traffic. But in the end, podcasting is not as simple as hit and record, hit stop, and publish. You got to do all these other things too. You got to do the social. You have to do promotion. You got to do reach out. I always tell podcasters, if you've hit 50 episodes, call your local news folks and say, hey, I'm a podcaster. I just hit 50 episodes. They come and cover you because they're always looking for a 3-minute snippet on the news of some public interest story. So you just have to grind. I call it the grind. And that work is hard as a content creator. And especially if you're trying to build authority in this space, you have to go to events like Dragon Con or whatever your content's about. You need to go where your listeners are and create content at those events too, so that you'll get more people to come in and consume that content.
What's the name of your show?
The Fan Freaks Podcast.
The Fan Freaks Podcast?
Fan Freaks Podcast.
There you go. Make sure next time you walk up to the mic, give yourself that cheap plug,
Always.
especially with a crowd like this.
Yes.
But my other suggestion would be, social media is where it's at. Make sure, and I think Todd alluded to a lot of that. But I would say, make sure you're up. It's kind of that whole idea of like being able to find your show on websites. I think a lot of people are engaging with the Twitter, with TikTok now is like really grown. I think since the last time we had a Dragon Con, I would say what a lot of people think Instagram Instagram is with all the hashtags and discoverability through hashtags. That's what like TikTok is actually becoming. And that's a space even I'm learning more about and I'm showing my age here, but I did tell you I did a show for 19 years, so you can do the math. But it's one of those things that's really growing with the hashtag searchability. You said you talk about wrestling on your show, or am I making that assumption on your shirt?
You're making that assumption.
Oh, my bad. What do you talk about on your show?
Nerdy stuff.
Nerdy stuff.
Well, think about like what you're doing, like in the last episode, something that might make it, unique, what type of nerdy stuff you're talking about, whether it's wrestling or otherwise. And, find a 10-second clip of the show, put it out there on TikTok, even if you don't have video of it yet, which I, encourage you to think about maybe doing in the future. There are some pretty easy things out there that'll turn your like little talking into waveforms and stuff like that to give it at least some type of visual. Or you know what? Be creative, be funny. Reenact the scene with puppets. Everybody loves puppets. Or do, something like that along those lines. A simple little animation or something. You'd be surprised what you might get
people
out of that.
actually like puppets?
The puppetry track is going to key your car if you don't watch it. Yeah. No, but yes, they do generally.
Look, Bob and Carl are legends around here. The sci-fi janitors. They haven't been around for 12 years in Dragon Con. I've been coming here for too long. But yes, people still like puppetry.
The TikTok thing is an interesting angle. I have challenges creating good TikTok videos, but I was taking some video around here yesterday, sent it up. I'm lucky I have a social media team, and they produced a little short 30-second TikTok of Dragon Con that we're here, and and it was kind of a fun thing. So for your show, it doesn't have to be like all serious. The more fun and goofy and corny it is, oftentimes is the stuff that drives 50,000 views on TikTok. So don't be afraid to do it, but always again plug that show. Make sure people knows it's tied to some sort of content wherever you have your content residing, so that they know to go where to find you.
They appreciated your Drag Race reference in chat, by the way, Rob. Congratulations.
Thank you.
They all picked up on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or we got somebody else coming up on the mic. Hello.
Hi, I'm Vito from Tampa, Florida.
Do you have?
I had a question. I've been producing an audio podcast. It's in the sports sphere, which is kind of a different world. But for 3 years, we've done just straight podcasting, just audio. We just recently pivoted to doing live stream video because we thought it was a really interesting concept to have people come in, ask questions, that kind of thing. And all we've been doing is taking that audio or taking the video afterwards, putting the audio into the podcast feed. Kind of found we'd end up splitting kind of our listenership. There's not really it's not as consistent anymore on the audio end. Some people was watching the video. When you pivot and do it that way, do you just want to go ahead and say, hey, this is the content for the show, we want it to be in both spaces? Or is there a reason to go through and edit the audio slightly different than what the video is to kind of create a space for both worlds? That's the one thing we were struggling with as we're starting to do that pivot.
The good thing about podcasting is, and most people don't know it, you can put a video in an RSS feed too. So I do audio and video podcasts. They're both branded the same. One says audio, one says video. So that way I didn't lose my audience with that split. They didn't have to go to YouTube, or they didn't have to go somewhere and listen separately. They still got it on their phone, the same place they got the original audio show. That is more expensive to do it that way, though. But I'm one of these podcasters that, Charles will know. I don't edit. Nothing. I cut the ends. I set the audio level, and I publish it. I'm done. I wouldn't have been doing this for 17 years.
That's my outlook, too, for what it's worth.
I wouldn't have done this for 17 years and still survived and still be creating content if I had to edit. Now, a lot of people are really anal about their audio content, and that editing is important to some folks, but I wouldn't have survived. I would have been divorced many, many years earlier had I edited audio.
I would also ask the question, and you may have a different answer than me, because for me, I noticed that if somebody's watching the video on Twitch, they're probably not really continuing to download the podcast feed. And some people that are listening on the podcast feed, they have just made OLR their Monday morning work thing that they listen to, and they just never show up Sunday night. I don't see that as a bad thing, because I say that person's engaging with the show, whether they're over here or whether they're over here. And likely these people on the podcast feed, most of them are probably trickling over to follow on the Twitch at some point or what have you. And there's always going to be some folks, there's going to be one night where something's on TV and they don't watch OLR that night, but they know they can get it on the podcast feed. So it kind of, goes over that way. I don't see it as such a problem to have the split audience, but that is also for me. If you are trying to monetize in a particular place or grow your audience in a particular place, maybe that is more of a problem. So you might kind of have to ask yourself, do I want to put all of my content in these different spaces if I'm trying to locate to this one space? But I think the idea of, having like that .com or whatever it is, that is kind of like your go-to point is something to think about, and it should always be visible and always be known.
Yeah. And I mean, because I'm also on Sunday nights, but I'm Sunday nights at 8. There are always something else going on TV. Sometimes owls are being superb, or sometimes people are pointing off at a sign in the distance, stuff like that. But, so they listen to the audio side. I do edit, but it's not necessarily because of the video versus audio aspect. It's because I'm doing a solo show by myself, and I'm also trying to read chat, which it's Twitch chat. So, I have to filter a little bit because it's Twitch. But a lot of times, like I'm thinking about, okay, if somebody's sitting in their car driving to work, do they really want that long pause? Or do they want my little aside to one person in chat who's trying to, make some joke that really is a good inside joke with the video audience, but not so much the greater audio audience? So I do go through and edit, and it's more just to make it a nicer listen to somebody who's listening in their car. But it's the same content, and I actually have more audio downloads than I do anybody in on Sunday nights, because Sunday nights people are also being with their families. That's dinner time with the family before everybody goes back to work or school the next day. I mean, last year notwithstanding, but that I understand that people can't be there the whole time.
And just to tack onto that, as much as I, give you playful crap for, editing the show and taking all that time to do that, it does give. And I, as somebody, I'm on the page with you where I'm like, I wouldn't have made it this far if I have to go through, because I do a 3-hour show sometimes, and it's, it's too much to do that fine tune editing and so forth. But I have other people to play off of, so I don't have as much of the pauses and so forth. But anyway, my real point was, actually, by I think having something kind of separate where it's like your audio is that very clean, polished product and your video is kind of warts and all. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people that want to tune in to see the warts, right? Why do people watch certain things? Because they want to see the ups, or to go back to Drag Race, don't f it up, but people do on, live content, and that's what people go to watch.
I always say I don't care where they listen or watch, as long as they listen or watch.
That's right. That's right.
That's the end goal. And 70% of my audience listens, 30% watches, and I still can't figure out why they watch. So, that some people have different, and they also, people learn differently too. So,
I will add, you mentioned StreamYard. That's what we use for multi-stream, and absolutely love it. I use Restream as well.
Step up to the mic.
Yeah, careful, because our Twitch people. Speaking of
apologize.
video, they can't hear you if you're not on mic.
I apologize. You
That's
guys mentioned StreamYard, and that's what we use for multi-streaming, and it's absolutely amazing. And for the live stuff, we did OBS as well, but now everything's we're halfway across the country at this point. But StreamYard's cool. Thank you so much. That was really helpful, because I'm an editor by trade. I do that for some other shows. This is our show, so that was kind of the thought process of like, do we want to go and trim that, or do people want to hear the warts and all? But I think you're right about trimming some of that stuff. Like, this is great, content for radio when you're sitting there trying to pull up your PDF or something.
Live radio, boys and girls. Yeah. And that's one of the things, like if you're subscribed to our Twitch channel, you see the video. I don't edit the video, so they can go in and see, he got a virus warning during his intro, which I did.
That actually happened.
This past Sunday night. Windows like, hey, there's a potentially unwanted program, and it's like during the intro of my show, it stopped everything for like a second, and I'm like, I should probably take care of this, but I only have an hour for my podcast, so I'm just gonna hope. And then it was fine. I was able to remove it. And I'm also glad somebody probably got my SportsCenter reference about the ticker on the side. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So,
no, I want to add that.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything else that we want to bring up? I'm also looking in the chat. Zeba says, poor Bobby. Thank you, Zeba.
I will say it is interesting what sorts of video things sometimes you don't think can really engage the video audience, but it really grabs their attention. And I'm talking about like cats. Okay. So like one of my hosts, Dark Sakura, sometimes her cat will walk in the background, or Loki has this too, because his cat is very needy and will like jump up on his shoulder while he's trying to do the show. But the video audience loves it because, of course, it's cats. Who doesn't love cats? Unless you're allergic. I'm sorry. But, it's one of those things where it actually does. It adds that little something that, the audio didn't get.
Yeah.
And I try very hard not to acknowledge it on the show because, again, you're trying to play that whole don't react to things that are only on the video, but sometimes it's really hard not to. But then you have to kind of explain, the cat's in here and up on, Loki's shoulder. And if you want to see the cat, I'll post a picture to Twitter or, something like that. And,
or to our subscriber chat channel.
Or that too, if we're feeling like, pushing that. But sometimes I don't, I want to kind of have avenues for both.
Yeah.
Something I found that was fun is, and I love coming, this is my second con. So the first year I went to the marketplace and I went crazy and bought a whole bunch of props. And so I use those in my studio. And I always looking for stuff at garage sales or wherever. I just looking for the most weird stuff. And I put Easter eggs in my back of my set. I'll bring something in. Had a Thor hammer I brought into the set that was just kind of sitting off the side. And people are like, where did you get that? So just kind of, you have to kind of mix it up a little bit, because if you're using the same set and nothing changes all the time, I want them wandering around looking for those Easter eggs. I don't do it all the time, but when I do it, I kind of hint, did you guys see something different? And then just leave that comment, and the video audience will kind of interact. It's a way to get a little bit of engagement. And sometimes I get prizes when someone sees the Easter egg that's in the back of the set as well. So that's just a way I try to get the audience kind of engaged at times.
I do that too. Well, not with the prizes and stuff, but the way my setup is I've got an area, like my desk is kind of an L shape. So I've got the area to my left that's the desk, and like there's a printer there. So there's open space there that people can see. I've got bookcases in the back where I've added LED lights, and I put like a tower of Nintendos and stuff that's always back there. But what I put to my left is always relevant to something I'm talking about that night. So if I'm talking about a game like that's a video game that's a sequel to something, and if I have the previous version, I'll put like the case of the previous version in there. Like the next time I'm on, I'll be putting the Dragon Con programs up there, those books. So I always try to just do something, and it's not always noticed. And I don't call it out all that much unless I'm actually talking about the thing that's there. But I'm sure that somebody goes in and be like, okay, so what's he going to put over on the side this time? So I try to do that, and sometimes it gets noticed, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't get noticed, it's fine.
I think as we're kind of trying to do the Zoom thing, it's a little hard to have the little Easter eggs. I sometimes do, because we have this big couch of stuffed animals, and sometimes there'll be a new one. Like, I got like a new Animal Crossing figure as a gift, so sometimes I'll put that there. But I think with like the backgrounds, like you were kind of talking about earlier, one of my co-hosts likes to do like a different game in his background every week, and it's kind of become a meme because it's really old, obscure stuff sometimes. So that's kind of, I guess, what we're able to do in the more boxed environment.
Have fun with the green screen now. You don't have to have a green screen anymore to do green screen stuff. So it doesn't key as good, but still, it's fun to do that. Change it up.
Yeah. It's early here at Dragon Con. So anybody else?
You want them to bring?
Yeah. Can someone bring the mic?
Hi.
Hi, I'm thinking about starting a fan cast. Do you have any resource recommendations? What I should look for, like in a headset or camera?
Do you want to do audio and video, or?
I was thinking about just audio, but maybe video.
Yeah, I always tell people when they're starting out to keep your budget simple. Audio is important, but there's great mics now for under $100 that are out there that are USB mics. Audio-Technica has the ATR 2200. There's a Q2U. Those are generally under $100, and they're a USB mic plug right into your Mac or your PC. And they are great quality. I think about the money I've spent on mics over the years, and I just it's astounding how good the quality is on those $99 mics. But from a camera standpoint, if you ever go camera, just a good webcam. I don't know. What do you guys use?
I have like a little Logitech camera that was under $100, and that's honestly what we use for the studio, and it works fine. But I would say my advice would be don't gatekeep yourself with the technical side of things. It is much harder to actually make it a habit and get in there and actually do the show. Because I think if you always say, well, I need this microphone, I need this webcam, I need this thing, you're going to keep putting off that thing that you want to do. So I would maybe think about it a little bit differently and think about, how can I get in there and just start doing my show? Because if you have a smartphone, you have enough. And is it going to be the best quality show in the world? No, but you don't have to compete with everybody else. You're only competing with yourself. So, and you can make little changes and improve your show every week and do the things there. Like, oh, I'm going to do 5 shows. You know what? I've shown that I'm really invested in this because I've done 5 shows. Now I don't feel so bad dropping $100 on a microphone because I've shown that this is a hobby and this is something worth investing in.
Yeah.
So don't let the technical stuff. I mean, sure, have a decent mic, but there's so much you could get even like secondhand or borrow from friends. And especially now that we have the pandemic, the work from home, all that type of equipment is so easy to get. Just in the past couple of years, now you walk into a Best Buy and they have a section dedicated to influencer stuff, which is so wild to me, but that's how easy it is to really get in there and get the equipment. So, I work with what you have and get started, get your fandom out there, then worry about that technical end of stuff.
Yeah. And also the part people usually don't want to say is don't gate on the technical stuff, because you need to make sure you actually like this. Because it's, yes, it's great to say, and I'm excited to hear that you said, I'm thinking about starting it, I want to do it. Can you stick with it? And for a lot of people, they're very excited about starting, but maybe not continuing. And I'm not saying that's you. I'm not saying anything. But I have seen that where they're like, maybe this isn't actually for me. And it's a lot easier to walk away if you've only spent maybe $40 or something on a mic that you could reuse on Zoom or other things than if you spent hundreds of dollars on equipment and you're like, well, now I've got to do this.
And making regular consistent content is hard.
Mhm.
And 50% of content, and this has been a statistic that have kind of stuck with us for years. I have insights on about 100,000 shows from a metric standpoint. 50% of content creators never make it to episode 7. So if you can get to 7, you've already done better than 50%. And then really where the next drop-off point is about 21, 22 episodes. If you can make it to episode 22, 23, then really you're even probably in like the 10% category that's made it that far, because so many people just quit. Because we live in a society of instant gratification. And oftentimes I'll tell people, you're not even going to find your voice until episode 50. You're not going to feel comfortable in your own shoes doing content until you put it, unless you come from the broadcast arena, then, you're already got those skills. But, have fun. That's the main thing. If you're passionate about it, you're here at the con. Obviously, you're passionate about your topic area.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that shop content now, and they're shopping for content. I'm like, who does that? I don't want to talk about something that I'm just shopping a category. I want to talk about something that I live every day for, and that's what makes podcasting great.
Thank you.
I do want to reinforce quickly, though, just something that you said, because there are different personality types and there are different motivating factors. So I should acknowledge that there are people that if you spend the $200 on the equipment, then it is going to motivate you to do the show and so forth. So if that is you, then okay, that's, but for me, it's really about like, just get your voice out there, and then you can improve that episode by episode. Best of luck to you, though.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
And I'm just going to put a quick plug that if you want to come next door at 1, we're spending an entire hour talking about that, getting started in digital media. So
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
so
Awesome.
yeah. So I just want to put that plug in.
Yeah, no, next door this way though, in 7, right?
It's 7.
Next
yeah.
door this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi guys,
Hi.
thanks for doing this panel.
Yeah.
My name is Rebecca Johnson. I've been doing a podcast called Supergirl Radio for about 6 years now.
Nice.
I remember
And we
you.
it's nice to see you again. We started live streaming last year. We've been using StreamYard. I can't echo enough what this gentleman said. StreamYard has been amazing. You can customize so many things. You can have MP4s in there. You can have graphics. It's amazing. It makes my life really easy, and it looks really professional. I just wanted to give a couple of recommendations for some resources. This gentleman was asking about promotion for your show. I highly recommend a website called canva.com. You talked about being bad at Photoshop. I'm terrible at Photoshop, but canva.com makes graphic design really easy. There are free accounts that you can have. I use the pro account, but there's a lot of options in the free account as well. Highly recommend it for social media graphics, flyers, anything like that. Also for fan podcasting, a friend of mine, Bill Meeks, wrote a book called Fan Podcasting, The Complete Guide. It's a really great resource for people who are just starting out, especially talking about how to review something, those kind of basic things about how to put together a show and what to talk about. So I just wanted to put those resources out there.
And Pixelpaka's in chat says that their friend uses Canva. It looks good. So there's a plus one on that.
I do want to give a shout out to the ladies, though. Right now in podcasting, the ladies are leading the pack.
Yeah.
They're leading the pack, and there's more women coming into podcasting and creating content now than men. So I just want to, if you're not creating content already, we want the ladies to continue to do that and showing us guys how it's done. And I think you going live, that really encourages me. We need more women doing live too. I think it's important for the space.
And that goes for the I'm just going to speak for Charles and hope he won't hate me, but that goes for the track too. And I hope you seem very knowledgeable and you've learned a lot. I hope you are on the Digital Media Discord and thinking about joining some panels if you're not already. Yeah, please do.
We're fixing the video right now, Twitch
Uh-oh.
chat. We're fixing it.
All right.
They can still hear us, though. So now we're doing an audio podcast on Twitch.
And maybe
So how many fingers am I holding up?
maybe on Twitch we're stuck, kind of like this. Who knows?
Yeah, of
go ahead,
course.
Charles, come on in.
Charles McFall, Rock Out of Podcasting.
You referenced a lot of different great tools. Canva is brilliant for making it look professional without having to be a master at Photoshop. Headliner, I think it's headliner.app, is you can take video or audio. It'll cut some for you. It'll put on some closed captioning if you want. And it'll format it for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want. It's Headliner. It's cheap. It's affordable. I think it's very much worth the money. And StreamYard, like I said, I just want to do a quick plug. We are using StreamYard for Twitch right now, thanks to In Addition. They're providing it to us this weekend. But that's another one that's great. Makes you look super professional and sharp at the easiest little click of a button. So those are some of the major tools.
Another company that a lot of folks may be not familiar with is Riverside.fm. It's another platform that allows you to do audio and video, and actually it records. It'll do what's called a double ender. So each person that is actually speaking or being in on a show, there will be a separate recording for them automatically in Riverside.fm. It's a tool I use a lot, and it's really overcomes when you have bandwidth issues. So someone's bandwidth limited, many people in rural America are. We know that the person that's speaking on is getting a master recording, which is then uploaded. So even though the live maybe have looked a little twitchy, we were able to then capture a good master recording from Riverside. So I like Riverside.fm as well.
One thing I'll give a shout out to that I haven't heard yet is Streamlabs. When folks were talking about the Canva that does the graphics, Streamlabs, at least the professional product, I don't know how much is open on the free end. I happen to have the pay account, but it does have like the instant create graphics very easy and make it's YouTube thumbnails. But you may not know, Twitch also, for the on-demand side, you upload the same thumbnails. They'll work on both sides, so they kind of have like a thumbnail creator, as well as some other tools that are pretty great for comparing or side by side with Twitch. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, how many of you are live streaming now? A few.
Okay, a few. That's about a handful.
At this moment, or
No, it just
I mean, we are right here. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, no, we also use Streamlabs, the merch store. So we got shirts and people can buy from there, and masks, which we took off, but
Let me ask this question: who's not streaming right now but thinking about it? I know we had one, we had a few. Okay, let me ask this question just candidly: what's stopping you? Let's see. We got somebody coming to the mic.
Hi, Arwen Kathke. I run the Cardboard Time podcast. I've been doing it for about a year.
Great.
I'm looking into getting into live streaming, but
Okay.
my lighting in my house is absolutely horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's really what's been holding me back. Do you guys have any tips on that?
Yeah, you can get like a little clip-on LED light for like $5, the type that goes on your phone, and you can put that on top of your monitor, and it,
Okay.
it's going to also. Something I've done is that if I don't necessarily need to have or I have like a 2-monitor situation, maybe I'll put all the stuff I need for my show on the right monitor, and then on the left monitor, I'll open up Notepad and make it full screen, so it's just a giant white light.
Yeah, works great.
And you'd be surprised what it can do for lighting and those sorts of issues. So our track director has another suggestion
Yeah.
too.
You'll also be surprised how little $10 light behind you makes all the difference in the
Mhm.
world. I mean, you have to have something on your face, but having just something to contrast makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. So I bet you can do it a lot cheaper than you might think. Don't get sidetracked by those like $100.
Don't get what I got. No.
Yeah, or those types of things. I know Elgato sells fancy lights. No disrespect to that company, they make some great products, but you can get in cheaper than that. You absolutely
They
can.
make they have a new camera out now that's pretty nice too.
And I have that.
Me
like,
too.
Yeah, I have all the Elgato stuff. You don't need to spend that kind of
Right.
money. I chose to spend that kind of money, but I've got the key lights and the new face cam, the Elgato face cam that they just released, and it looks great, but you don't need it to start.
So I'll ask you guys this question.
And congrats! I'm glad
yeah.
to hear you're making content, and good luck with your transition with the
Thank
video.
you.
Yeah.
So when I started doing live, my show improved because I had to be a better content creator because I knew I was live, and if I went or if I wasn't prepped, then the show just didn't flow well. And I said I never edited, but when you're just doing audio, you can take that segment of bad audio and just get rid of it, right? Like it didn't exist. In video, when you're live, there's no going back. It's out there. So as being live made you a better creator?
I think so. And I think you also really have to learn. I mean, live's all I've ever done. So, just even when I started in college radio, that was live, and it's just been a track from there. So it's kind of like all I've ever known. And I think it's interesting because I think that's had benefit in my personal life and my ability to just improv in the classroom. I teach in a corporate environment, or I used to historically. And so it's just like, that's kind of played into that. I think that ability to do the improv. So, yeah, I think too, when you're doing things live, I think you just kind of have to make sure you are in the right mindset and make sure you're not reacting too much to anything that goes wrong. Things are going to go wrong. Once in a while, it might, depending on what it is, it might be funny to have a laugh at it or something like that. Like once we were doing, this was actually in the time we were doing the show on Justin TV on OLR. We had a guest that was there that leaned over on the table or something and knocked the whole damn mixing board and everything completely over live. And it was just but it became a meme on the show.
Yeah.
Is that Drew's back on the show. Don't let him sit next to the mixing board.
No.
Those types of things. So you have fun with it. And I don't want to go to a negative space, but I think it's something you have to be prepared for, because I alluded to that Twitch is having some real problems right now with some of the rating and some of the very negative content. Keep in mind, a lot of people are doing that for a reaction. So you also have to be able to, if you're going to go live, don't buy into trolls. Do not feed the trolls. Do not give trolls what they want. It's going to happen to you at one point or another. Unfortunately, the way the world is right now, if you're gay, if you're a woman, if you're black, it's going to happen to you more. And you're going to have to be prepared for that. And it sucks. But do not give them the reaction that they want.
One thing for me going live, kind of going back to the positive side, because that's all important,
Right.
is it has forced me to keep a schedule. And so I know every Sunday night at 8, I am doing this thing. And if you're doing a podcast with, you're just recording it, it's very easy to say, I don't feel like doing it tonight. I'm going to do it tomorrow night. And then, why do today what you could do tomorrow? And you keep doing that. And then things, it just stops being a part of your routine, your schedule, and doing it live with a live audience, they're waiting for you. They show up for you. So even if you don't feel like it that night, you'll always see somebody in chat being like, can't wait. Been looking forward to this all week. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I'm like, let's do this. So consistency and repeatability is key to keep doing it. It's easy to start. It's more difficult to continue doing podcasting or streaming or anything like that. We are coming up at time, so I want to give us up here the chance to plug where we are, where you can find us, and also talk about Blueberry, because thank you so much for sponsoring this track. Thank you very much for sponsoring. So I do want to start with Todd, where we can find you.
Sure. So I'm a podcaster, like I said. Do 3 shows. One is at geeknewscentral.com. It's a tech show, 1,550 episodes in the can. Do a show called New Media Show with a competitor of mine from Libsyn with Rob Greenlee. It's we just talk about podcasting for 90 minutes every week and have no script, and we seem to get through every time. And then I do a show for the company for Blueberry called Podcast Insider at podcastinsider.com, which will be forwarded to a Blueberry site. But I'm at Geek News on Twitter, and love to have you subscribe or follow the show wherever the podcast consumption, or wherever you consume podcasts, I guess. That's the best way to say it. So thanks.
You can find my show is Orange Lounge Radio, which iTunes, Spotify, all those fun places. And I love Twitter. If you want to follow me on social media, at Mr. Rob Roberts on Twitter, because some spammer took my name. So Mr. Rob Roberts on Twitter.
Yep. And I host the Bobby Blackwolf Show. So that's what you look for in Spotify, iTunes, Google, all that stuff. Live on Sundays at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, right before Orange Lounge Radio. We're over at the Voice of Geeks Network. We have a postcard on the back table. So that's at vognetwork.com, but also on Twitch at Vog Network. But I'm also everywhere at Bobby Blackwolf. And we also have a charity here going on at Dragon Con. And since I work with the Games Done Quick speedrunning marathon, if anybody knows that, I'm one of the donation readers, and I get to read about the charities that we raise like $2.something million for. So Dragon Con here, we are working in 2021 with the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. So Dragon Con is going to be matching dollar for dollar up to $100,000. So each dollar that's raised is turned into 2. So nearly 500,000 children in Metro Atlanta live in communities with low or very low child well-being. As the nation's largest donor and volunteer-supported mentoring network, Big Brothers Big Sisters makes meaningful, monitored matches between adult volunteers, which are the bigs, and children, the littles, ages 5 through young adulthood in communities across Atlanta. They develop positive relationships that have a direct and lasting effect on the lives of young people and ignite their full potential. They are the defenders of potential. So you can text mentor to 243725. You can donate from your phone. So those of you on Twitch at DC Digital Media, that's where you can do that, or find out more information at dragoncon.org. Thank you so much for being here for this panel. I know this is early for Dragon Con. Thank you. And also rate this in the app 5 stars. If you do not want to,
which is the clipboard icon, because it's not always intuitive where to rate. So that's important to say too. It's a clipboard icon.
So if you like this panel, rate it 5 stars in the app. If you didn't like this panel, this is great time for silent introspection without looking at your phone. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your Dragon Con.